Okay, I think we're live.
Okay, great.
Yes, I do have the live button up on the top.
Okay, cool. Wow, technology, look at that.
This is scary.
Okay, so I guess we just start talking about Class Dojo. I've used it in the classroom. I believe you two said that you hadn't, yeah?
They're on the 3rd and 4th grade do it.
Okay.
Kindergarten does it.
Okay.
And I have used it. I have teachers who do use it, and then I was given the opportunity to use it to like supplement them. But I don't use it like as my own class monitoring system.
Okay.
Kindergarten is nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would make. Okay, wait, pause. I'm really hoping that as soon as we stop this broadcast, it just like loads up to my YouTube. So fingers crossed. I believe that's exactly what's supposed to happen. Just so you know, in case it doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so sorry, back to what we were talking about. I think, at least for me, like we use it for 4th, 5th, 6th grade doesn't use it, but last year 2nd, 3rd, and 4th used it, and it seemed to work really well. I think the biggest thing about Class Dojo is consistency. So I started teaching 5th grade at the beginning of this year, and I was really using it a lot in my classroom, and was being really consistent about it. For me, I only had it where you added dojo points. I didn't take away dojo points. Other teachers did it differently. But then the teacher that I handed my classroom off to wasn't consistent with it at all, and it kind of just fell apart. She tried to add a lot of things in the middle, and then I guess just wasn't consistent with giving people points, and so it kind of fell apart as a behavioral management tactic for her. So I think that would really be the only thing. It's like if you're going to commit to using Class Dojo, you actually have to be consistent.
I totally agree, and I think just looking at all of these tools, but then this is specifically Class Dojo, I think it's just so obvious that as time goes by, whether it's a digital tool or even just a lot of the stuff we do as teachers, that stuff, it's another thing to do that day. So stuff starts to like, plans that you had in the beginning of the year start to fall apart and all of that. And so I asked each of the teachers that do use it to kind of give me their thoughts on it. And 3 of the 4 teachers, sorry, 2 of the 3 teachers no longer use it at all. And then 1 uses it kind of, I guess, like in a vague way. And then 1 still uses it regularly. The interesting thing though, is that they, we talked about the pros and cons and all of that. All of them finished it by saying they think it's a great tool, but it didn't work for me. And they said that all separately. It's not like we were like all together. It was just interesting that like, it's almost like the concept's there, but it's.
What did they say was working for them?
So I think that the hardest thing was keeping consistent, was like, the first couple of weeks or first couple of months, it's like, great, here's a good dojo, here's a bad dojo. Like it was like incentive for the kids and stuff like that. But it was really hard to like keep it up and keep it consistent and to constantly be doing it. That was kind of a general consensus. One teacher got into how she used it one year and it was a huge success. It worked really great with that class. The second year she used it, that class, the parents, it was not a great feedback. There was one parent in particular who took it really far and ended up talking to the principal and complaining about how it was like causing this child is kind of, I mean, she's not like a troubled kid by any means, but she's definitely a ADD, ADHD medicated child. So they're and it's 4th grade and they're going through all these changes at home, figuring out what medication works and all of that. And then these negative dojos were coming home every day and it was causing like problems at home or whatever. This is, by the way, very typical of the parents at my school, that like there's a problem with everything and all of that. But and it just like, it turned into this like drama situation because it was like these constant negative dojos, which as the teachers, it's like, well, yeah, that's the problem. And we're trying to fix that. But as the parents, it was such a problem that she ended up she just had to stop using it that year because it was such a big deal. So it kind of goes with that, like, does the negative reinforcement work for everybody?
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
I guess it depends. I think it very much depends on like your classroom environment and the teacher who uses it. Because one of the reasons why I didn't want to use the negative dojos is just because I had a crazy kid at the beginning of the year where like a negative dojo wouldn't affect him at all. There was more drastic measures that needed to be taken with him. But I don't know. I think sometimes it really motivates kids and other times it doesn't. But the one thing that I like about it is it's kind of all encompassing, is where I send that letter home with the parents and they can add and they can look and see how their children are doing. And they can, I think they can even talk to other parents. They can message me. It became a great tool for parents to message me if they had a concern about the student, because I wouldn't necessarily get notes that were sent to me from their students, maybe either because there was a language barrier and they couldn't like translate it, or the student would just forget. So great way for parents, like in a very unconventional way, to be like, hey, my child isn't coming today, mark them absent. You can also mark attendance on Class Dojo, which is really nice. And it's just, I think it's just kind of like a nice tool. One of my coworkers who has had a lot of success with it, she has like 3 iPads that she uses all of her own. I don't really know how she got them, but she just has them with the Class Dojo, and she just gives them to all of her specialty teachers. So her art teacher, her PE teacher, the music teacher, and then they can sit there with this iPad that's not theirs and that travels with the class to be like, oh, Mary's doing a really good job today. Sarah didn't do such a great job. And then it's just consistent. And then when the kids come back from their special, they can see what dojos they've earned or haven't earned. But yeah, and then at the end, she would have like a dojo goal and then would have like a party or something. But yeah, I don't know. Those are the reasons that I kind of like it.
I know my 3rd grade has started it this year, and the teacher that I interviewed for it, she really likes it, and she did say it's hard as far as consistency to keep putting them in and everything like this. It's really nice because since they're starting it in 3rd grade and they're continuing it on to 4th grade, they've already gotten the routine. They already have their expectations and everything ready, so that by the time they go from the lower level of the school to the higher level, they're at least started on it. And she did say that it is a very good tool for communication between parents.
Yeah, I also got that feedback about the communication, and I can definitely see that, because I think sometimes, at least for me, when it's like, like, oh, so-and-so's being terrible, I need to go email their parents. I mean, I can't do it in that minute. And then I get another class that comes in. By the time I have lunch or at the end of the day, I may have forgotten about what happened. So to be able to make that note in the dojo, or, somehow, and not even have to email the parent, the parent can then email me and say, hey, what happened? And the conversation can get started. So I could definitely see that part. And Ari, I thought that was interesting what you said about that teacher sends that iPad around. I know for me, like I said, when they started doing this, I guess 3 or 4 years ago, I didn't have an iPad in my room. And that was my biggest, like, that's when I finally like threw my hands up and was like, I'm sorry, I can't do this, because I couldn't keep track of that many things on my phone and walk around with my phone. And then to go back to my computer, it just wasn't logical. Now I do have an iPad in my room, and I think it would make a huge difference. But then even more so to have just the iPad that has just that class on it, I think would be so beneficial. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, she's the only one that does that out of the classes here that do it. And I think for her, she's just kind of narrowed down a system of getting her kids to want these dojos. And because, like, I guess the teacher or the fifth grader, my old fifth graders, when they were in fourth grade, their teacher used it but wasn't consistent, and like the kids were excited about it, but then like the teacher made them less excited because she wasn't making it a fun thing. And I think you kind of do have to go that extra mile where like you as a class you earn certain dojo points and then yeah. And so like if someone has like 10 dojos, they might get a bigger prize than someone that only has 2. And she kind of used that as a system for the person that has 2 to be like, I want what the person that has 10 has. And I think at that age, that that sense of
competition.
Yeah, that sense of competition is really strong. Even if they don't admit it, they want to do well. So I think that's just kind of a nice little tool. And I think it's the best compared to all of the other tools that we had to review. They weren't so great.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that looking at them, there's different things that work for different people, but then I don't know, as I looked at some of them and I felt like I started to think that way about almost all of them, is that it was like, oh, this would be great, but I wish I could add this to it. And it's like, I mean, of course that makes sense. Like the way I teach is different from the way Kelly teaches, which is different from the way Ari teaches. And, you know, whether it's just a personal style or the classroom environment, you know, it just, it would be nice to like custom build a tool of some sort.
Yeah.
I don't know. For instance, I looked at that, the best sand timer, and so obviously it's a timer and it has the visual, like it's the same thing that's on your phone or, you know, a stopwatch, but I guess having that visual is nice for the kids. And for me, I had gotten, when I first started teaching, it's a physical like timer, like if you can imagine like a kitchen timer,
The oven timer.
But then it has it changes color on the top, so like it basically changes color when there's 10 minutes left, like turns red, so it's like a warning, which is really huge for me because I have to be like if I lose track of time and the bell rings and we have art supplies everywhere, it's bad news. So it's nice to be able to say like, hey, you have 10 minutes left, and then of course the kids like get excited that it changes. Well, it broke like 3 weeks into using it. So I have often thought like it would be so great to have a digital timer that is pulled up that does that, and then even to go further to like just put my schedule in there and then it just like automatically happens, would be great. So anyway, I think the sand timer is great, but I think it could probably use a little bit more features to it personally. I don't know.
I think it's more, it seems more of like a time management tool than like a behavior management. So like if you have like a really rowdy kid, like you can't use it for that. But I do like that in terms of like, you have this amount of time to maybe get your art supplies out, this amount of time to actually be doing your work, and then it changes again. And the kids can see like it's filled up, and as time's running out, oh, we only have this much time to do X, Y, Z or whatever. So I did kind of like that. And it was pretty too. I know that doesn't seem great, but like kids don't like to look at things that are ugly. I don't like to look at things that don't have a nice interface. Like the teacher's class behavior free app. It was just such a hoot reading what it was about, because I don't have an Android, first of all, which is one negative. So I can't download it, but it's also ugly. And reading the reviews for it is just so funny. So like the people that have the best reviews, it seems, for this application are people that are only using it for their families or their cousins or their sisters. Like one comment that gave it 5 stars was like, this is great to keep track of my sister's behavior in school. I don't know why they would want to do that, but there was a bunch of teachers that were like, you can only add 20 students and you can only have 2 positives and 5 negatives. And I think something that's different with the Class Dojo is it's tailored to you. So if you want to give points for maybe turning in homework or for getting to carpet time on time, you can add those without having to be restrained to what Class Dojo tells you you need to do. And it seems like with the Teacher's Class Behavior Free app, it's very limited, and it hasn't grown. And it seems to just be better for like maybe a family that needs behavior modifications rather than a whole entire class.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just, it's just not pretty. I get it.
Little kids like color.
Yeah.
For sure. Let's see. What other ones did we have here?
The other one I looked at was the seating chart, and that's something that I looked at different seating charts every year that I've taught like programs, like how can I do this? How can I get this done? And there's like no program out there that's like customizable. Sorry, like that you can customize, you know, for, it's always like a grid. And so, anyway, I do think that the features of the tool seemed really useful. Just, I like that you can just click a button, it rearranges students. You don't have to, and then you could move individual ones if needed. And it seemed to be the most similar to Class Dojo in that you can walk around and mark absent. You can open it up and write a note about an allergy or testing accommodations. I like that that's all there. I thought that seemed great. But again, and I'm just being selfish maybe, but like if you just could add a feature to make it set up the way my classroom looks, it would make it like totally beneficial instead of kind of beneficial.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I'm reading here that I remember being really cool was that I think, especially in Asian cultures, like some of my friends have up to, I think Maxim is one of those people. Well, that was kind of a weird phrasing. Anyways, but he teaches tons of students. And maybe it's harder to learn their names, but if you're teaching like a math and you're teaching like 500 kids and you're a first year teacher, you have no idea who these kids are. One of the things is you can pick random students from the class. So you just click, and then it's great for picking up class discussions. And I think you can mark when they've talked. So I think it was like a few weeks ago when we were talking about making sure that everyone is talking. You can do that with this app. You're just walking around with your iPad, marking off who is talking, who's not, picking names at random, and you're not necessarily having to use like popsicle sticks or whatever, especially if you're moving classrooms all the time and you just kind of need everything consolidated. So this seems like a great tool, but I do agree with Claire, like all classrooms are different. People don't build classrooms the same. So maybe if you could like punch in your dimensions or something, it might be a little bit more useful.
And it would help with learning those. That was my biggest thing when I first started, was learning the kids' names. And I literally would like cut pictures out from the yearbook and like put pictures next to it in the shape of the charts, because I was like, I literally didn't know 500 kids' names. And at first I would beat myself up about it. And then I realized I'm not that crazy. It's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
So.
I know they do that. They do that as far as being a substitute. I know in the sub binders, especially if you are the art teacher, when I subbed for art, she would have, okay, this is K1 coming through, and it's got the kids' names, at least their first names, and it's got their school picture next to it. To me, I only have one class. I only get rid of them during the specials. So they're with me all day.
Yeah.
So those personalities and seating charts could change every hour with the group I
have. Yeah, so I don't know. I think that this was a good discussion. I mean, I think we've got good information on this stuff. I think we all could personalize it to ourselves for sure, but some things are useful and some things are not.
Oh, I think one of the biggest benefits of Class Dojo is that it's free.
Yeah.
Because even that classroom, the one that we were just talking about, the seating chart one, it costs $3.99. And it's like, if you're going to try to convince a teacher to try something, it's got to be free. And just, I don't know, they're already spending money on all these other things. And you're just like, wait, try this too on an iPad that you don't actually have. And it's just, it's a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
So
the only reason why I do Scoop Pad, because it's free.
Yeah, I totally get that. Okay. I think we covered everything.
I think so too.
Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything that you guys would like to add?
No, are we now? The only thing that we have to write on is in the Google Docs is about the dojo and 2 things that we liked. I want to make sure.
I don't think we even.
Yes, to
or
discuss.
Or just this.
No, I think that we just turn this in.
I agree. That's what I take from this.
Hopefully that's correct. Oh wait, so what's our consensus on Class Dojo? Do we like it? I think we like most of it. It just depends, yeah?
I think we like it as long as you are able and willing to give it its,
it's due.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And commit
and I think we're kind of in agreement, like where it might be more beneficial for older or like middle-y kids, not too young, not in high school necessarily.
Not kindergarten.
Yeah. Kindergartens they're a little too little, and high schoolers don't get excited about monsters. So. Okay, cool. So I'm going to stop this broadcast and pray that it does what I want it to do. So I will let you know.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Good night, guys. Have a good day.
See ya.
All right. You too. See everybody Tuesday.
Okay. Bye.